Welcome to the show, everybody. My name is Pete Wright, and I'm here with Megan Strand.
Hello.
And Dane Christensen.
Yes, I'm here.
And we are, as always, the Naked Marketers. And Megan, welcome back.
Thank you.
We missed you last week.
Yeah.
I
How was that
missed you
implosion?
too.
Yeah,
The implosion of my life. That was last week. I'm dealing with the implosion of this week. I don't remember what happened last week. That was, I think, the morning that I woke up at like 7, and I woke up earlier than that, but at 7 I got 19 emails of things that were just on fire that needed to be put out. I think that's what happened.
Well, I'm glad you're back this week.
Thank you.
We have lots to talk about. Where should we begin?
Well,
Let's begin with something fun. Let's talk about weed maps.
Yeah.
So, a Fast Company had a cute little story about this site called Weed Maps, and the title is Weed Maps launches Groupon for pot. Stoners cheer. So, essentially, we all know what Groupon is, but Weed Maps is a clearinghouse for medical marijuana information. So, participating dispensaries can offer discounts to their constituents. So, just kind of an interesting little application for making pot securing easier, I guess. So, but obviously
now this is
only
primarily oh wait, let's see. I was going to say this is probably California only, but no, it's not. Arizona, Michigan, Nevada, Washington, Colorado.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm surprised Oregon's not on there actually. But
well, I hear
anyway.
your dispensaries you don't have many. Is what I hear.
Is that what happens?
I don't know.
You know, I gotta say, I'm not all that tapped into the medical marijuana dispensary.
What I have heard is that California is now a joke. Have you heard
well,
this? That it's like practically they've converted everywhere there was a 7-Eleven is now a marijuana dispensary.
Thank you.
That was happening in Los Angeles about a year ago, but they've cut way back.
When you'd hear stories that are like stories that are akin to, oh, don't worry, there's a doctor on the street corner writing prescriptions for back pain. Like, it doesn't take much to get. Oh my God, I stubbed my toe. Would you like some weed?
Would you like some medical marijuana?
Oakland, which is kind of the pioneer of the whole thing in California, the dispensary is. I think they still only have 2 actually, and they're. You know, they believe they've got it under control, but LA got way out of control last year.
Hey, fish got to swim. Dog got to bark.
That's right. And then Dane came up. You had a fun story too, Dane.
I was going to say, before you pick up, your deal of the day, and I say before because I think after you get it, you might lose the motivation, to do some necessary things. So beforehand, let's see. Is the state of New York on there? They're not, are they? Man, anyway. Well, this will be handy if you travel a lot. All right. If you're in a state like California, you get your weed app. But if you go to New York City, and this is the city of New York, actually just launched an app that tells you the location of places to get free condoms. Which there in the city of New York, there are over 1,000 of those locations. So
are they like 24-hour dispensaries? Like, what are these places?
That's awesome.
24 hours? I don't know.
Well, really, I mean,
sleeps and for the most part, what good is a free condom at
I love that it's called NYC Condom Finder. Like only communications people in a government office could come up with something that boring for something as fun as this.
And I like what Mashable said. Despite the potential ridicule you'll receive for having a map on your phone, the initiative does make sense. New York City wants to become the safest city for sex in the world.
That's awesome.
Wow.
I'm going to New York City next week. I'm going to try it.
Give that a try. It's a free download.
Oh, that's awesome.
I bet you chicken out, but hey.
Well, it's brilliant.
Bring back a souvenir for the husband.
Now, the app is only available on the iPhone, right? So
probably.
No, and Android.
And Android.
Oh.
Yep.
Sorry, Windows Phone 7.
Were you trying to segue there, Pete?
No. I put that one to bed.
Did you?
Well, I think when you type in condoms, the one place that won't into Google, the one place that will not come up might be JCPenney. However,
I don't know. Have you tried it?
Over the holidays, when you typed in pretty much anything, JCPenney came up as number one. Dane, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Somebody, David Siegel, I guess, at the New York Times, appears to have noticed this. I don't know if somebody had tipped him off or quite how this came up, but what he's saying is, and his introduction to the article is interesting because he's like, well, imagine you're Google. And, you're really trying to customize search results for the user and make it as useful as possible and like location specific and maybe sometimes, search history specific. But he lists all of these words that JCPenney was coming up number one for: dresses, bedding, area rugs, skinny jeans, home decor, comforter seats, furniture, tablecloths, tons of phrases. And he's like, you could have had Walmart, let's say, Bed Bath & Beyond, J. Crew, The Gap. There are lots of possibilities for the number one. Why would it be JCPenney? So they tapped this guy, Doug Pierce of Blue Fountain Media, who is a kind of an SEO freelancer in New York. And he used some SEO tools to kind of uncover like what's going on with the JCPenney website. And what he noticed was a massive amount of inbound links to the JCPenney site, and many of them from sites totally unrelated to any product JCPenney carries. So now there's a big blow up. JCPenney's claiming, oh, of course we didn't do this. This is, because this is a gray area really, but on the whole, Google is said to be of the position that if you do this is kind of gaming the system, and we may actually purposefully score you lower, and maybe you get like a couple of month boost, which this couple of month boost they got was right during the holiday shopping season. So if they get penalized for the next couple months, it's maybe not so bad. Best time of year to really get that little boost. But Google has been known to really penalize these kinds of efforts. So JCPenney is officially saying, "Oh no, we didn't do this. We didn't do anything like it. We don't know what happened here. They're claiming no responsibility for this."
Google is taking manual action against JCPenney. Wow. They're in trouble. Well, and that raises a good point as marketing professionals. When you hire an SEO consultant, it would behoove you to know what the tactics are that they are going to be employing, because probably at the end of the day, it is a responsibility to make sure that what's happening via their site is on the up and up.
Well, and you never really, I don't know that, well, let's just say it takes an extra degree of due diligence to really wrap your head around what those third-party vendors are doing on your site.
Right.
But wouldn't you be able to tell if there were that many links just in your own analytics tools, or would that be all outsourced to the same person?
But if you're looking for it, but trust me, the PR department for JCPenney, or the CEO, or even the director of marketing is probably not looking at that. They've probably got a team of, who knows what they're really outsourcing here, really, because we know that they have done some things. From a web perspective, they probably got a good internal team, and they're. So what I'm saying is there probably are at least maybe there's one internal person that might have been checking that, but isn't going to tell anybody that, hey, this is a problem. We've got a lot of inbound links.
Terrible news. We've got links everywhere pointing to us. Let's stop it.
See, our traffic seems to be way up, and we're ranking number one for all these terms. The red flag.
Nip that right in the bud.
Yeah, red flag's not going to go off for anyone at JCPenney until all of a sudden, this kind of thing happens. So, who knows where else this is happening at? But it's really the black eye is on Google here, because Google's the one that people read the story and say, and people say, well, wow, really? So if I do a search for bedding, I kind of want the best, I don't know, maybe someone who does the most volume, or someone who's the closest to me, or somebody who has the best website, or, I don't know. I want some options that really make sense. But I read this story and, if I'm just sort of the average Joe, I'm thinking, well, can I actually trust? Because this, by the way, to make it clear, we are not talking about paid ads at all.
Right.
It has nothing to do with Google bidding on these terms, and there's no relationship there anyways. That's not what this is. I mean, these are the organic results, and JCPenney beating everybody out for all these terms, and then somebody saying like, well, look, it's not like 5 or 10 links. We're talking about thousands,
right?
And we're talking about sites that don't even really exist anymore. They're up, but they have a message like, what you're looking for can't be found here, or
oh, you're kidding.
We're out of business now, or like they've got messages, and then buried within the site there are links to companies like JCPenney.
Wow.
Which that's the kind of thing that Google probably needs to do a little more snooping out, that element of this story. In addition, I guess, to, because it's kind of difficult to say, well, a massive retailer, JCPenney does $17 billion a year. Is it that ridiculous to think they'd have, thousands of inbound links? No, that's not ridiculous. But, you put the pieces together, and some of it's just investigative journalism, I guess, here. You'd think, red flags would come up.
Well, when you are a bricks and mortar retail location, you have to pull out all the tricks, Dane, because otherwise you turn into a Borders, and as we know, then you end up bankrupt, which is bad. So just a quick note that Borders has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy this week, and will be closing 200 out of its 642 stores, although it's already closed hundreds of locations over the past few years. So I know it is kind of sad, isn't it?
Well, it's sad just because, I used to go to Borders a lot in 2002, and
yeah, you probably don't anymore, do you? I still like bookstores. I'm sorry, and even our own Powell's in Portland downtown, which is like the best independent bookstore. Sorry, the Strand in New York City, but it is. They had laid off. I think I read something a couple of weeks ago. They laid off a bunch of employees as well. It's just wow. Sad. It would make me sad to see, all brick and mortar bookstores go by the wayside, but that's kind of the changing face of publishing these days, apparently. So,
have you guys embraced the ebook thing? Are you reading ebooks?
No. You are. But I'm not.
I'm intrigued.
I don't read paper books anymore. The first thing I do is go for, especially now that you can read books on through the Kindle app on the computer too. And they sync with all your devices. You can read it on your iPhone or your Android phone or your iPad.
I could not read a book on my iPhone. There's no way, unless I had to.
No, it's quite beautiful. The screen is so beautiful that it really looks like you're looking at paper. So the experience, I think, is there. It's just a matter of getting people over the hump of not holding paper in their hands. The fact that I can carry around as many books as I do is really the convenience factor of it, but it makes me read more, and that's really the bottom line. Like I find it's changed my habit to the fact that I'm buying books now, and I wasn't buying books before, and I'm reading them.
What were you doing before, Peter?
Just reading online, just reading small snippets of news and articles and blogs and websites and things like that. I just wasn't reading books.
Got it.
And I wasn't subscribing to magazines. I wasn't doing any of those things. Like I had given up on those bits of my life just because I was busy. And now that ebooks have taken such a hold, and I'm very excited about the Apple and Google announcements this week. About the launch of subscription payment plans. This has been a long time coming, and if you're not sort of, breaking out in a cold sweat following the industry news, what has been missing from the ecosystem in purchasing electronic book or magazine content is being able to subscribe to them. So, up to last week, if I wanted to buy the latest issue of Wired Magazine, I would have to pay $3.99 and download that one-off magazine, and that's expensive.
Every time.
Right. Yeah. Well, what they announced this week is a subscription plan where now the technology is in place to allow payment processing in the apps so that I can subscribe to Wired Magazine for a year and be charged annually, so I don't have to think about, going back every single month to get the latest edition. It'll just download to me. I'll have already paid my subscription fee, and it'll be done. Apple announced their very standard 30% take for Apple, 70% for the publisher. Google the next day announced a very similar program, although Google only keeping 10%, in a move that's likened to an elbow to the kidneys of Apple. We'll see how that plays out. I think ultimately Apple's, I don't think Apple's really terrified of what Google is bringing to the table there. They've got a lot of relationships kind of locked up, and they certainly have the technology. But the fact that I don't think that's really the issue at all. To me, it's this issue of enabling this technology to the point where the next wave of adoption can happen. Now, people, when they can subscribe monthly or yearly, will start to do so without thinking about it, and that will change the dynamic. Again, putting more money into the publishing business that was not there the day before. I mean, people like me, I was not buying books until the ebook system came up, and now I'm buying books. Publishers are getting bits of my hard-earned doubloons that they would not have gotten before. I think that new injection is important. So,
it's an interesting time. Obviously, I don't know. It should be for everyone, I think, anyway. Like, these are some pretty massive industries, and they're massive changes. But I got to also say that there are 3 things I really have always liked to do, and probably always will like to do.
And 2 of them you can actually say on the air.
Okay, good catch there. I like to browse videos at a video store. I like to browse books at a bookstore, and I like to browse magazines, I guess, at a bookstore. And I don't know, man. You look at the writing on the wall and everything that you've just said about, that illuminates just a part of how, we're sort of changing the way that we get this content. Do you guys kind of see, like, maybe someday a publisher or a movie studio or some collection of them kind of create a store that's not so much for buying as it is for promoting? You know what I mean? Where you can browse like bestsellers, or maybe just, go be introduced to magazines in sort of that community environment or atmosphere, and maybe you could buy if you wanted to, or it's mostly about, and by the way, you can subscribe on, your iPad.
I don't, and I don't for.
There's got to be something. No, there's got to be something that says on a Friday night, if I wanted to, at some point in my life, 10 years from now, I could go to a video store. I don't think there are going to be video stores though.
No, they're already not video stores of note. I mean, they like Powell's. Those that are of interest are the ones that are really specializing in some sort of a niche, classics that you can't get any that aren't out of publishing. Those are even going to be going by the wayside. Once eventually they get repurposed and released digitally. But I think it's a cultural dynamic, a cultural change that is going to happen 10 years from now. I would lay money down that says you're going to have something else that you would choose to do on a Friday night, because you'll forget. You will just forget that browsing a bookstore is something you used to like to do. Or you'll say that just sort of longingly. Gosh, remember the days when I used to make phone calls with a phone that was attached to my wall?
That's not a social experience, though. That's not like a...
I'm saying
you can't replace the market, social experiences virtually.
Yes, you can, but that's not the point. The point is
not social experiences that are where you can see people and be with people and have an atmosphere.
But that's the change that is happening, and it's not going to be around bookstores. I don't think. I think what's going to happen is it's a race. I think that our cultural memory will shift faster than our desire to keep bookstores open. I mean, that's what we're seeing.
This is like exciting and sad and terrifying all at the same time, isn't it?
Yeah, once you get past it, it's like pulling
Peter
off a
doesn't
Band-Aid.
think so.
I really don't. I'm with you though.
Bookstores are great.
I get a great.
You guys have pals. I mean, Salt Lake could be without a bookstore in 5 years.
Yeah. That's sad.
That's true.
I mean, you guys have pals and a lot of other pretty cool little bookshops and things like that.
I get a great deal of joy out of getting a cup of coffee and going to a bookstore and just walking through it.
There you go.
But I don't.
And you just 10 years from now, you're going to say, "Oh, that was cool," but I really don't care.
Yeah, I could do without it because what I'm doing is saying, "Oh, yeah, I can reproduce that." I get even, I get the same joy now sitting down with my iPad and flipping through book samples on the Kindle or iBooks. I get the same kind of joy from it. And frankly, I get, I could take my iPad to Starbucks and sit there with my cup of coffee and
not talk to anybody and not make any eye contact and not like
what kind of bookstores do you go to where you're browsing books and I don't do that.
See what kind of Portlanders show up there.
Who does that?
It's just who does that?
Who goes to a bookstore to say no? You don't go
to see what kind of people show up and what kind of people look at what sections of books. And I like to people watch.
Do you know what kind of people show up? People who know how to read. That's about it. They're people. They're fat people. They're skinny people. Smart people. Dumb people. What are you talking about? You go and you bury yourself in a magazine that you're not going to purchase.
But you're doing it outside of Perfect Strangers,
and there is no business model for that.
That's okay.
You people, this is the lunatics are running the asylum here.
But book publishers still need to sell books, and people who buy books still need, some way to be introduced to them.
And I'm saying that the technology will exist to the point where you'll be able to buy books anywhere and have them with you everywhere, and you will not need a bookstore to deliver it.
I'm not talking about the purchasing of books. I'm talking about the social experience of browsing them.
Publishers don't care about your social experience. They care about your buying the book.
We're not talking about this from a business perspective. We're talking about it from an emotional perspective, Peter. We're just sad. We're a little sad. Can you just let us be?
Let me tell you, if there's one word that describes you people, it is sad.
Well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start this thing where you can get a card and you can check a book out.
And then you can light it on fire with your friends.
Nice.
I don't even go to the library anymore.
Look out, Rock Creek Library. Peter's not voting on the levy this year.
All right, let me tell you what the stupidest thing is. The stupidest implementation of this technology. Going to the library with your Android or your iPhone or your Android to rent a digital book from the library that you actually have to visit to get.
Yeah, that is kind of silly.
I mean, those are the kinds of things that are going to, they'll be meted out over time when IT people will wake up and realize that's really stupid, and publishers will wake up and realize that's really stupid, and eventually, like I said, our cultural memory will outpace in our ability to forget that social experience. It will be replaced. I'm not saying that it's not, that there won't be something that people do socially, but I just don't think it's a bookstore. I'm excited for it because I'm actually writing this down because I've got a big fat "I told you so" call coming to you guys in 10 or 15 years.
Lord.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, well, make a note.
In the meantime,
I'm holding my breath for that.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to open up a coffee shop that is a place to introduce you to books and magazines, but the money's going to be in selling, coffee. But you get the social experience.
I absolutely could see that happening. That I could see.
You just told him you couldn't see that happening.
No, it's not a bookstore. It's not a bookstore.
Okay. Well, but that's what I was just saying with, why wouldn't, some of the biggest book publishers in the business create, a store in a big city like, say, New York or Seattle or something, where it's not about stocking books on the shelf or offering, a massive Borders experience, but it's about introducing you to new authors and new titles and having a social experience, where you can browse in a way that, I don't know, is physical and not solitary and alone at a table at a cold and lonely Starbucks.
I want that Starbucks experience to be just like I get at home with my coffee in my boxers, and I want it. That's the kind of social
Starbucks experience to be like that.
I think
what? I'll open up a coffee shop where you can wear boxers.
Okay, here we go.
Oh yeah.
And I'm going to distribute free condoms, and I'll sell weed too.
And then you'll be a medical marijuana dispensary too.
It's all coming together. The genius of this show. I mean, you could do millions if you listen to the show every week. Really.
Rare books and weed. I love it.
And our show is now over because Dane just wrapped that.
That's right. Do we actually have anything else to talk about, people? This is ridiculous.
Just
we have like 15 other stories.
No,
we do.
Yeah, we do, right? We got something. Don't you people have something to talk about? We
got
to
get off. Talk about the Twitter mentions.
I was going to talk. So I'm my wife is in the wasteland on work this week.
I was going to say she's in the middle of nowhere.
And so I have nothing to do in the evening. So I was catching up on my Grey's Anatomy. I got to watch my soaps. And so I was watching Grey's Anatomy, and the episode, not this week or even last week or maybe even the week before, it was a 43-minute commercial for Twitter. And I thought that was fascinating because I have not heard that kind of in-depth mainstream description of Twitter or utilization of Twitter on a mainstream television show, primetime television show before. I mean, they really took it apart on this show. Every single segment had something about what was about Twitter. They had the grizzled old chief, the old man, who was played by Dane, the anachronistic old man who puts on his bowler and his spats.
Right.
Yeah, and they had to educate him about what Twitter was, and all the young interns, the young, progressive, forward-thinking, intelligent interns played by Pete, were tweeting like crazy.
Oh, boy. Wow.
Anyway, they were all tweeting like crazy, and they took this 43 minutes to describe what Twitter is and to show it being used to actually tweet in surgery and educate all of these residents and interns.
So did Twitter pay for this?
That's what I can't find. It looks like yes, it was a product placement, but I can't find how much. I can't find any of those details. But here's the interesting thing that struck me, and this is fodder for I think probably another long discussion, so we might have to put a pin in it. But what struck me is the level of or showing the utilization of the product in this case really works for product placement, because even with 200 million active Twitter accounts on the service right now, there is still this degree of opacity for bringing in new people who don't quite understand what Twitter is. And this level of product placement really supports that initiative to show what Twitter is, how people are using it to communicate, and how they can use it to learn. In this case, that was their big pitch. It was different than, say, characters walking around with Starbucks cups talking about how they can't get into work in the morning until they've had their first Starbucks. What do you guys think? Where do you stand on product placement right now? Because I'm usually fairly bearish on it. I think it's pretty silly, and in this case, it actually made sense to me.
Why did it make sense to you? Just because it's a service that you like?
No, it made sense to me because it was using the concept of product placement in a way to really describe and illustrate the use of the tool, better than I've seen in the past.
It was more realistic.
Well, I certainly don't know about that. Man, I haven't been an intern in surgery in many years, but. Ever.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm just really, really looking forward to is this new Morgan Spurlock documentary that got sold at Sundance, The Greatest Movie Ever Sold, which is an hour and a half documentary about, about product placement in movies.
Oh.
And I'm just hoping he's uncovered some details because, and I bring this up because you said, this seemed to be so obviously, not a piece of charity by the writers, probably, deliberately done and probably on behalf of Twitter for some, monetary exchange, but you can't find any information on it. Nobody's talking about it. They haven't, why can't you? That to me, there's something kind of weird about that. And I think in most cases, a company is happy to, I don't even know. I mean, in most cases, maybe not very many. Maybe this is really common that it's sort of, you maybe it was obvious, maybe it wasn't, maybe you weren't sure, but no one's talking, no one's saying anything. The company isn't acknowledging that they did that. Nobody's, there's no information about how much did that cost. I don't know where to get all that information, but the whole notion of it, I mean, sometimes I hate it and sometimes sometimes I am I like it, or think, wow, that was really well done, or that was really interesting, or it's kind of fun that they did that. And obviously they have to pay for this somehow, right?
Right. It's just a matter of, does it look like a sort of a desperate scream? To come hat in hand to the viewer and say, please look at my Samsung, or does it actually? Is it actually a tool that's easy? And I mean, maybe that is a more gracious move by the writers to actually work it in at that level of kind of intricacy, to make it part of the story where you think, okay, it makes sense.
But still, it wasn't charity. We don't think.
No.
We don't think they probably just woke up and said, it'd be great.
Gosh, we should totally write an hour show about Twitter and put some doctors in it.
Yeah, let's just talk about Twitter a lot, and let's and unless this would be a real stretch. Somehow they've got a Twitter campaign coming up, and they just want to make sure their viewers are on board with Twitter so that they can really get a lot of followers. And that just didn't happen. But
and it's worth checking out. I mean, this was an interesting bit came out of Fresh Air this week. Biz Stone was a guest on Fresh Air and talked at length about companies that were using Twitter during the Super Bowl. And here's the interesting bit that I pulled out of that. Audi actually did a promoted trend campaign where on their Super Bowl commercial, at the end of their Super Bowl commercial, they had a hashtag that they were promoting, hashtag progress is. And that was it. And on Twitter, the idea was you go through and you hashtag progress is and then write a little thing about what progress is. And as a result, that commercial aired on the Super Bowl. Maybe it's in rotation, some limited rotation afterward, but the Twitter activity around the hashtag progress is, around that promoted tweet, is ongoing for weeks after the air of that commercial. Wow. It's that sort of cross-media population or propagation that Twitter has made sort of happen. So that's a paid media example, but the fact that, when you look at Twitter and search for Grey's Anatomy, it's all over the place, talking specifically about, following these characters that were tweeting, following Dr. Bailey, Miranda Richardson's character, on Twitter, who was tweeting, for the show. It's a fascinating kind of thing, I think.
Absolutely.
Product placement is fascinating, and whether it's a train wreck that you're watching and it's offending you, or it's so slickly done that you didn't even notice it, it is fascinating.
It is fascinating. All right. Did we have anything else we want to bump up here before we wrap it up? Come on, give me something.
No, I think
we're good. I really wanted to talk about Path. I wanted to talk about it, but I think I had enough of a rant about Borders.
Yeah, that one goes on about probably about as passionately and as long and opinionated as the Borders conversation.
I'm pretty excited about that. I'm looking forward to that
because it's not timely news, anyways. The Path.
No, that's right.
Google deal sort of was a few weeks ago, so it's just a conversation, and we can do it next week.
All right. Well, then where can people find you, good people, Megan?
You can find me on Twitter at Megan Strand, or at my website and blog, Incouraged.com, which is INCOURAGED.
Now, what's this? Are you going to talk about any of your causes stuff, companies and causes, or anything like that? Do you want to? do you get to do that yet?
Not yet, but I will.
And your fancy new title?
I'm not talking about any of that. Nope.
Megan. All right, Dane, where are you? Hanging out in Utah in your boxers at a bookstore. Yeah. The last Utah bookstore.
We have more than I'm making it sound like. So it's not a wasteland, really, but it is in the desert. I'm in about.me/Dane Christensen.
And I am about.me/Pete Wright is where you can find me. And if you want to learn about this very show, you should head over to thenakedmarketers.com. Make sure you subscribe to the show in iTunes. It's the greatest way to ensure you don't miss a single week of naked marketing goodness. On behalf of Megan and Dane, I'm Pete. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll catch you again next week on The Naked Marketers.